Hey, what up? It's Chris Roscoe, and today we're talking about something pretty cool. We're talking about purpose as an antidote to depression. Now, this is what worked for me. You know, I was really depressed and anxious, and I had rage issues, and I was just all fucked up in the head for pretty much my entire life. But a sense of purpose was what really got me through it. Like, that was the narrative that got me through it. And so I'm going to be talking about this from my own perspective of something that worked for me, and I think will work for a lot of people, because I'm pretty sure we're all essentially wired the same. You know, there's going to be some people that this doesn't apply to. And if you're one of those people, then I apologize if this comes off as insensitive to you. But if you do think you're one of those people, I really want to encourage you to hear out what I have to say anyway, and see if you can take anything from it. Because my assumption is that unless, you know, you're on the far end of a spectrum, there's something to what I'm going to say that you can apply to your life to make your life better. I'm not trying to tell you how to live your life. I'm not trying to tell you how to be a good person. I'm trying to tell you how to be happy. I'm trying to tell you how to get out of being depressed and anxious and having problems, and just have clarity and fun and live your life and love it and have good relationships and all that shit. That's what I'm here to do. So why do I think that depression is that purpose is an antidote to depression? Well, in order to explain that, I first want to define what purpose is. So for me, purpose is whatever it is you want to do whenever you're at your most honest and authentic. Whenever you've been nice enough to yourself to figure out exactly who you're all about, and you sifted through all the bullshit, and you found the value in the worst parts of yourself, and you're starting to integrate yourself, and you're starting to become healthy and whole and truthfully honest, and be motivated by a sense of kind of like forward momentum based on like loving yourself and caring about yourself and doing what you really want because you know that's what's best. When you do that, whatever it is you end up wanting to do, you know, whether it's ride a fucking unicycle, be a life coach, or whatever it might be, you know, train weasels, maybe that's your thing. Like whatever it is you want to do most when you're at your best, that's your purpose. And I want to distinguish that from this idea that purpose is this thing that's like kind of out there, and you need to just like pick a job that you think is really cool and then try to do that job. Like, that's one way to go about doing it, but it's not necessarily going to be the antidote to depression. Because if you think of some really cool thing that you're like, oh my God, people will love me if I do this, and I'll feel really satisfied because it's a cool thing, and I'll have a lot of money, and it'll be great, and I'll dedicate myself to that, and that'll be my purpose. But then you get into it and you don't really love it, or you didn't do the inner work to develop yourself to the point where you could love the thing on a sustainable basis and actually enjoy it, you may not cure your depression. You may end up actually making it worse. So it's really important to start off with the definition of purpose as something that comes naturally, that arises naturally when you start to care about yourself and value your own desires more than the opinions of other people. When you do that, there's this really bizarre thing, because it's counterintuitive, right? We're taught to think that selfishness is bad, that putting yourself first is bad, that we should always put other people first and all this stuff. And that ain't the case, because when you really put yourself first and you take care of yourself, you end up surrounding yourself with good people that lift you up. And so you're at a higher capacity because you're being supported by good people. And not only that, but you're not dependent on those people for your emotional resources. You can take care of yourself because you're prioritizing yourself, and you're doing what makes you happy. You're doing what you feel is meaningful. You're doing what you feel is contributing to the world around you, because all of these things make you happy. And that's the kind of irony of the whole thing, is that if you genuinely put yourself first, you do the things that are really good for you, and you become healthy, and therefore you extend that to the world around you, and everybody around you becomes healthy because, you know, you stepped up and took good fucking care of yourself. So that's kind of the idea here. Like, I know selfishness is stigmatized and all that, but it's really not a bad thing. In fact, the people that don't prioritize themselves, and if this is you, I mean no offense, because I've been there too. But when I didn't really prioritize myself, I prioritized other people. I was actually kind of a shit friend and a shit boyfriend, because I would prioritize everyone else, and then my needs wouldn't get met, and then I'd get mad at other people for not meeting my needs, even though it was my responsibility to meet my needs in the first place. You get what I mean? So purpose is something that naturally arises from taking care of yourself and being who you really are and being honest about what you want out of life. And when you do that, whatever the thing that you want the most, we could call that purpose. We could also come up with another name, but purpose is a commonly used name, so I'm going with that. So it's just whatever you desire most. And there may be work to figure out what you desire most, but that work is still fucking worth doing. So why is that an antidote to depression? Well, now I want to define what depression is, at least in my experience. There's a lot of controversy about what depression is. There's a lot of really strong feelings about what depression is because I know a lot of people feel helpless, and I was one of those people that felt helpless. But as I started to learn about things I could do, that helplessness started to go away. So my definition of depression is it's just simply an unconscious need and desire that says that staying down is better than thriving. Now, I know that's a simplistic definition and it may not make any sense, but why do I say that? Because that was my experience. I was depressed. I went through the whole thing. I was suicidal. I couldn't get off the couch. I didn't want to talk to my friends. In fact, my friends would come, or people would come and visit my house, and I would actually hide in the fucking bathroom, or I would leave, or I would pretend I was asleep, or I would lock myself in my room, or I would do whatever I had to do to make sure that the people that came to my house never saw me, because I was so depressed and I was so anxious and I was so ashamed of what I'd become that I needed to hide from the world. And if I talked to somebody that day, it was a win, because I used to actually not be able to speak. I was so depressed and just dissociated and fucked up. So when I learned that that I'm in control of myself and everything I do is for a reason, I started thinking to myself, okay, if I can't get out of bed today, what reason would I have to want to stay in bed all day? And then the more I dug into that question, the more I asked myself that, I was like, oh, because I think the world's unsafe. I think the world is scary. I think that if I were to go out into the world and be myself and present myself to the world and engage with the world as it is, then bad things would happen, and there's nothing I can do about that, which is a pretty horrifying concept. So of course it makes more sense to stay in bed and smoke weed and watch cartoons and play video games and cuddle with my girlfriend. Why wouldn't I do that? I know that's nice. And to a certain level, that's right. But the thing about it is, I think we all have this innate need to do something. We have this thing where if we're not active, we can't just sit there forever. We're not built to sit there forever. We're built to do things and live and express and play and explore and all this shit. And so depression is the well-meaning but mistaken idea that staying down is better than thriving. And so purpose is the exact opposite of that. Purpose is the idea that if I go out in the world and I face my fears and I face my demons and I face rejection and I take risks and I go into the wild unknown, that I'll be better for it, that my life will be better for it. That's the thesis of purpose. And so they're quite literally polar opposites. And so on a perceptual and narrative perspective, if that makes sense. So the fact that they're polar opposites from this perspective, I think is pretty fucking important. And at the same time, they create kind of exponential growth, which is really fucking interesting to me, because our unconscious minds matched with our behaviors and our conscious thoughts end up creating this kind of snowball effect, where with depression, it's okay, I'm going to stay in bed today because I'm sad and I don't feel good about myself and I don't feel good about the world. And then because I stayed in bed all day, I feel worse about myself. And then so I'm going to stay in bed because I feel worse about myself. And then because I feel worse about myself, I'm going to stay in bed. It's this self-fulfilling prophecy. It's a snowball. It gains momentum. And eventually it becomes unconscious and you just do these things without even realizing it. So you may not know why the fuck you stay in bed. You may not know why you avoid your friends. And because you don't know, you may just end up judging yourself for it and digging those behaviors in deeper. Now, the opposite of that is purpose. Purpose is saying that, wow, I've found something that I really love doing, or at least something I'm super interested in doing. And it makes me happy. It makes me feel good. And then when I do that thing, I feel good about myself. And then when I feel good about myself, I want to do the thing more. And so I do the thing more. And because I did the thing more, I feel better about myself. And it's this upward exponential spiral of growth and development. Whereas depression is the same thing, but just pointed in opposite directions. And because we have freedom of choice, you can choose to set your snowball thing and on any path you choose. You can go straight up, you can go straight down, you can go diagonally, you can go wherever the fuck you feel like. But being aware of this opportunity to choose and being aware of the trajectory that you set yourself on, depending on your choices, well, that's a hell of a thing. And so, I mean, I feel like this is really the simplest way I can explain it, because they're just polar opposites. And the thing about it is, inherently, in order to accept the idea that you even have a purpose, you have to accept the fact that whoever you are underneath, at your most honest, is a good person, is someone worth being. And that belief alone can totally transform your life. Because a lot of us with depression have this idea that deep down at our core of who we really are, we kind of suck. And we're kind of worthless, and we're not really good for much, and people don't really like us, and we're a burden to other people. And that's the narrative that comes along with depression. But the narrative that comes along with purpose, no matter how difficult it could be to maintain or try to start that uphill climb from depression into purpose, the whole idea is that who I am underneath, if I were to start the undertaking of loving every part of myself, finding the value of it, integrating that value into my life, and living in alignment with who I really am underneath, then my life will get better and the world at large will be better because I did that. Like, that is not by any means an idea to take lightly. Because just seriously, honest to God, like, pause the video right now, take out a sheet of paper, open up a Google Doc, whatever the fuck you got to do, and take note of your narrative. Take note of what you think about yourself right now. And I'm willing to bet you have somewhat of an idea of what you think about yourself already. See how that compares to the idea that who I am underneath, when I'm honest and authentic, is a worthwhile individual that is good for the world, and I will be happy being, and the world will welcome with open arms. Like, that's a novel concept, and that's the foundational element of even being able to pursue purpose. If you don't believe that, you don't have a shot in the dark. But if you believe that and you practice it, you'll find it to be true, and it'll be this snowball thing. Now, it's a complicated process of taking the worst parts of yourself and extracting the wisdom from them so that you can do that. And I actually teach a course on that because it's complicated. It takes a while to explain, and I can't really do it in this video if I want to keep it at relatively decent time. But I am teaching a course on this that I'm launching on July 30th. I'm going to be launching a course where I'm going to help you find your purpose. And I'm going to walk you through the process of finding all the parts of yourself that you don't like and finding the wisdom in them and integrating them and getting those parts of yourself to work together with you so you can be that honest, badass, like, bright, shining example of what a human being can be. And of course, it's going to be cheap as fuck. So, like, honestly, and there's going to be an awesome group. I've already got, like, the best client I've ever had in there. Like, it's going to be a really good group. And I want you to be a part of it. If this is interesting to you at all, then I want to help you go from that downward spiral trajectory to a straight, like, exponential upward growth trajectory. That's what I want for you. And it's simpler than you think. And if you don't think it's possible for you, like, just remember what I told you. Like, I used to want to kill myself. Like, I used to think that I had to either commit myself or kill myself. Like, I, honest to God, thought that was what I had to do. I thought that was my fucking moral obligation. Like, that's how messed up I was. And that wasn't even that long ago. Like, I thought those things at 26, and I'm 31 now. So the fact that I'm sitting here happy and loving my life and can tell you this is absolutely insane. So I just want you to know that you're capable of more than you think. Life can be better than you've likely been led to believe. And it may be simpler than you think and a little bit easier than you've been led to believe. So if that interests you, let me know. Send me a message. I'll get you set up. We'll get on the phone, and we'll see if it will work for you, because I don't want you in the course if it doesn't work for you. So we'll see if it works for you. We'll figure it all out. And either way, even if you decide not to join the thing, fucking hit me up if you're interested, because I'll help you make up a plan regardless of whether or not you sign up, because I just want you to have a good life. So let me know if you have any questions or concerns or anything like that. I fucking love you. I hope this helped. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you next time.